Guys, today I've got a super exciting video clip for you guys from my interview with economist Lynette Zang. Here, we're going to discuss the fake idea that Donald Trump is going to save you from a CBDC or Ron DeSantis or Tom Emmer or any of these guys. No one is saving you from a CBDC. They are coming, and we're going to talk about it in this clip. Full interview coming on Monday. I'm not a financial advisor. Hey guys, today I am incredibly honored to be welcomed by Lynette Zang. She is the founder of Lynette Zang Enterprises, formerly served as the chief market analyst at ITM Trading and is a renowned expert in precious metals and economic trends. With over 40 years of experience in finance, she brings a wealth of knowledge and insights into investing, market analysis, and economic forecasting. Lynette is widely respected for her dedication to helping people understand how to protect wealth in uncertain times. Her website, LynetteZang.com or www.LynetteZang.com, fully encompasses her expertise in current projects. Lynette, this is an exciting interview. I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm very happy to be here, Ben. Thank you so much for having me. I was excited to be here as you are excited to have me. So this will be great.
But Lynette, I really want to know, in your perspective, does it matter whether it's Republicans or Democrats or whether it's America or it's China? Like, are CBDCs coming to the world?
Well, 100% CBDCs are coming to the world. Now, whether or not they're going to stick with the world, my hope is that we can create a quiet revolution by buying those assets. For me, it's physical gold and silver outside of the system so that we have a seat at the table in this new iteration, because you can sure see how well we've all done with the central bankers and how much they care about us. So, yes, I do think it's inevitable. If you look at the tests around the world, a lot of times, and I'm going to exclude China because China just really knows how to control their citizens to a large degree. Not completely, though. That's something that gives me a lot of hope. But, they'll give the population these CBDCs and the population will spend them. It's whether or not they will reload them. So, the work is going on, whether anybody or any of our politicians say we're not going to allow it or not. The work is definitely going on to put them in place because the current system is dead.
Right.
That's simple. It died in 2008. They got to come up with a new system. And they've been working on this for a while. And so, when they're ready for the transition, we're going to have it.
They've been working on this since I think the 50s, or maybe even earlier. I don't know. I think at least 1971. I think at least 1971 is when we went off the gold standard. I believe that was an intentional move that was not organized only by the American government. I believe we call them the both children family, the famous banking family from Europe. I think they have a lot of control over a lot of different things that people see, and I think that they had a hand in getting America off the gold standard because currency life cycle. Something we were talking about before we went on air. Ray Dalio's video, New World Order. I can't remember what his about the changing guard of currencies and systems and things. Mm-hmm. And I think right now, as we are heading towards a transition, it's important for people to understand kind of what we're talking about. So, what does this next financial system? Right, it started in 2008, kind of officially with the death of when we had the bailouts and the financial crisis. We started moving towards digital currency, of course, Bitcoin, white paper written in Halloween, on Halloween of 2008 and launched in early January of 2009, right around the same time. And you don't think that's maybe a coincidence? I know you said some cool stuff about that before as well. But like, what does this system that they're bringing about right now, what does it look like?
Well, unfortunately, what they want is full surveillance. It's almost like when we're talking about life cycles and currency life cycles, and when we went from the Middle Ages and we went all the way around, and I think we're going back to that point where we're in feudal times, where you just have a handful of people that own everything and everybody else has to rent. And so they need to be able to control the population. And they can do that with the new currency if it's a full surveillance currency, which is exactly what they're going for. So that everything flows into it, flows out of it. All physical assets are digitized. And that actually creates the globalization myth, right? I was a stockbroker in the 80s. All I heard about was how great globalization was. And I remember during that point thinking, I can see some problems with this, right? And so now all we're talking about is the deglobalization. But if you look at the financial system, that is getting more and more integrated, even as supply chains are shifting. And you've got the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which every member is either they're treasury secretaries and they're central bank chiefs, unelected official that meets all of the time. They have a currency in there called the SDR, special stands for special drawing rights. It's just a name. It doesn't really mean anything. And that is a basket of currency, but they are working on a universal currency because there's no limits to how many currencies they can put in that basket. And so they would control the universal currency, and then you would still have the local currency and therefore not realize that anything had really changed, when in reality, everything has changed, which is exactly what happened in 1971. And I was there as a teenager, as a late teenager. I think 71, I think I would have been 16 or 17. So, I remember the chaos and everything that was happening before that. And the NSA white paper on how to make a mint came out in 96. And if you look at that, it really describes cryptocurrencies.
It does, and I'll be honest. There's a lot of things like, I've been in the space in the crypto space. I didn't know anything about finance or economics before I got into crypto in 2012, and really 2017 when I really kind of took it all in. And so I don't have this background, to kind of understand a lot of those different things. And crypto is something that got me in and got me excited and made me want to like learn about a lot of this stuff. And I think most people, they just don't ever get to an exciting point in finance, and that this is why kind of these people are able to do this. And I think we'll talk about who these people are, because there are specific entities. IMF, you mentioned
Oh,
one. The IMF is full of facilitators. Facilitators are people who are used by the power structure, the control systems in the world to carry out their bidding. You look at someone like Larry Fink, for instance. Larry Fink is on. I don't know for 100% sure what I'm about to say, but it's very close. He's on like the WEF. He's like a board member of the Trilateral Commission. He's in on the Bilderberg, right? We know the stuff he does for ESG and the World Economic Forum. So you see people like Larry Fink. These are people that carry out these things, and this is why they're able to have these worldwide systems of control. Now, you go back to 1989 when The Economist magazine, the famous, of course, The Economist magazine, people may not know this. The editor in chief in 1989 was a Rothschild. I think it was Forrest. I can't remember the first name, but there was a Rothschild that was editor in chief of The Economist magazine. They put out this idea of this one world currency, right? The Phoenix on the front. It's actually got a Stellar XLM logo on it, which is a little interesting. One of the top cryptocurrencies on that cover. But here's the question I have: is this universal CBDC that we could be looking at? Is this the one world currency that kind of has been predicted for years throughout the information networks that a lot of these families control, such as The Economist? Do you think this is it? Do you think it's all been leading to this?
I think it certainly could have, and I think we need to take our power back as individuals. So, yeah, absolutely. They've been working toward this since the 20s, and with the first time that they allowed just the general public to have credit, right?
Oh,
And
okay.
then we saw how all of that risk in the stock markets were transferred to the public. But I want to point something out, because you talked about like when you got involved in cryptocurrencies, et cetera. The way that they make this transition seem like it's like a natural progression is they'll bring out whatever their idea is, and they will allow people to make a lot of money and get a lot of acceptance and get them to adapt. I've really been watching Bitcoin since it was $7 a coin. And you might think, well, look at how stupid you are, because after all, look at where it is right now. But I always saw it as a Trojan horse. And adoption of cryptocurrencies has been huge. And what do you see now? You see the IMF coming out with papers, basically, private cryptocurrencies bad. CBDCs good. Right?
Yeah, it's so funny.
Right.
Once you see it, it's so silly. It's like, are y'all serious? Are y'all trying this again? But everybody else is like, oh, this is cool, amazing, I love it.
Well, you know,
So,
but they do that. You think about
right,
1913 when the Federal Reserve was put in place.
hmm,
You remember hearing about the Roaring Twenties?
right,
The
yes,
Roaring Twenties happened simply because here I have this 1/20th of an ounce. You can see how teeny weeny itty bitty it is. A
mm,
20th of an ounce of gold backed $1, right? When they installed and legalized the Federal Reserve, which is neither federal nor does it hold reserves, by the way, but
thank
when
you.
they installed the Federal Reserve, they now expanded that. And so this little 20th of an ounce of gold now backed $2.40.
Oh,
So, yeah. So if you look at the purchasing power chart, what you'll see is this huge 50% drop off because of all of this new money that they
yes,
printed into the economy
yeah,
and allowed the public to have credit. And they're
yeah,
watching the stock market go up, up, up,
mm,
up, like we're seeing these days, right? Up, 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 up. And the industry, it's kind of interesting. This is really kind of interesting because prior to this point, central banks had a 15 to 20 year life, right? They had a
yeah,
charter. Our Federal Reserve had a charter, a 20-year charter, which means it was over in what year was that? 1933. Is that a
mm,
coincidence? I don't know. In 27, I think it was 27, for the first time historically ever, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, was given a perpetual charter. So never has to end. 1928, the industrialists, the guys that knew that this was the stock market was a house of cards, well,
mm,
the public was flooding in wanting to emulate them while they were getting out. Oh,
right.
doesn't that sound familiar?
It's every time, yeah.
So can you
Mm,
see this? And if you read their documents on how to make these transitions, they say this. Now, this may not be an exact quote, but it's a pretty close quote. We know how to do this. We just get the public comfortable and used to it, and then we
mm,
make the transition.
yeah,
So they have a whole 18-step program on how they're making the transition. It's in one of my very favorite reports, which was 2015, breaking below the lower zero bound. In other words,
oh,
how do you attack principal, right? Because negative rates attack principal, right?
mm,
If you're now paying to loan somebody money and accepting less back than what you give them, you're attacking your principal.
right.
So in there's this beautiful 18-step program on how to transition us, how to get rid of cash
Mm,
overnight, getting people to volunteer,
yeah, hmm,
right? How do we get people to volunteer? This is how you do it. You keep things looking as normal as possible. You look at, I mean, hey, as a teenager in 1971, if I had a $20 bill in my pocket prior to August of that year, then in September, I still had a $20 bill, but it was a brand new bill. It was a
yeah,
different bill, but they pretty much look the same. I've got lots of examples of that. They pretty much look the same. And so we transitioned into the new system, but nobody knew it. Nobody really
right.
understood that basically the central bank had given over the control of inflation or rather the government, Nixon, had given over control of inflation to the central banks. And here's the problem. They controlled the rate and speed of inflation with interest rates. What happened in 2008? Interest rates were dropped to zero and they
Mhm.
were held basically there for 15 years,
Yeah,
right? So what does that mean? Well, that means that all of these, a lot changed since
yeah,
2008. A lot has changed, but a lot of people were not in this environment prior to that, and they didn't realize really what happened in 2008. I knew the system died. Shearson was my alma mater. I was watching that like a hawk.
yeah.
I was getting ready to retire, actually.
No,
And I had a little 2-bedroom condo. I could lock the door and off I go. No big deal. And then 2008 happened. I did not think I would see it in my lifetime. And I went,
yeah,
holy crap. So instead, I bought a property in Central Phoenix and started working on my mantra, which is food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter, because these are all the things we need to sustain a
Yeah.
reasonable standard of living. And these transitions are very, very, very painful.